Hey, good morning, guys. Hope you're doing well wherever you are. My name is Dr. Rob, the Addiction Doctor, along with Jennifer Lovely. This is the Recovery Channel podcast, and we're coming live in your living room, in your work, or in your office to give you the best conversations around. Jen, how you doing?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm living the dream instead of dreaming of living.
I know. I am too. I'm excited. I'm getting married next week. I'm super excited.
I know. It's freaking awesome. Absolutely. You got to write in, guys. If you want to send any gifts or anything, please give me. I'll send you an address to
send it to Rob Kelly.
Yeah, it's in San Antonio somewhere. Don't put a name on the gift cards, whatever you do. So what have you been up all week? Any good?
Yeah, good. But it's been a little bit of a crazy week. I think the full from the week before has traveled over this week, but other than that, it's been a really good week. Excited, getting ready for everything. It's been sunshine and beautifulness here. How about you?
It's busy at work, unfortunately, and then I've had to drop out my AA meeting that I started on a Tuesday. I just can't make it. I've got somebody who's jumped in the Tuesday psychology patient, but I can't moan because I remember when we first moved to San Antonio saying, we'll just take one or two people on and that's it. And my philosophy always been, don't take any more than 4 patients on, which was a golden rule in Dallas. We never did. And we had like 9 staff or something. Now there's only like 4 of us, 5 at the max. And it's not working out for the 4. I think it's 18 right now with all the part-time people looking after different people, which I don't see them people. So that's good. The staff see them. But it's still, you've got to manage and juggle all that stuff,
I know.
So, a bit crazy, but glad to be here today.
Yeah, me too. Excited to be here. Excited to have this conversation with Mr. Wolf.
Yes, Tom's going to be good. Done a little bit of research on him. I think he's doing the right thing and answering questions and giving them the answers they need to hear. I think is awesome. We need more people out there like that. Asking them tough questions, like you said in the pre-talk before we had about California sober. It's like, let's get it out on the table. I mean, we'll get into it later, but psychologically, it's dangerous. I mean, if you're not a chronic alcoholic, then you can. Of course, you can do that. It's no problems at all. But you got to ask yourself, it's not about the alcohol and drug. What's it really about? That's where it comes to.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's all good. Looking forward to this quick break, and Tom will be back on screen when we get back. Don't go away, guys. Welcome back, guys. This is Recovery Channel podcast. My name is Dr. Rod, the Addiction Doctor, along with Jennifer Lovely. Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, wherever you are around the world. Today's special guest is Thomas Wolf. Hey, Tom, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to be here.
We're glad to have you here.
Yeah. So let's go right into it. Tell us a little bit about you, how you got started into the world of drugs and alcohol. Let's go.
Okay, let's go. Well, my name is Thomas Wolf, and the way I identify myself on social media, on Twitter, is that I'm a formerly homeless, recovering heroin addict. So I fell into my addiction. I guess I don't know if it's more common than not, but anyway, I fell into my addiction because I had surgery on my foot back in early 2015. So we're only talking about 6 years ago. Wow. I was sent home from the hospital with a month's supply of 10 milligram oxycodone pills for the pain to help me cope. And I remember taking, I started off taking 1 pill and, it kind of helped with the pain, but my foot was really hurting. So I was like, well, let me just double it up and see what happens. And so I took 2. And when I took 2, that's 20 milligrams, I started feeling, pretty good, like pretty loopy, right? So I bumped it up to 3, and let's see what happens with 3. So all the pain was gone, with 30 milligrams in me, and all my other problems had gone away. And what I mean by that is that, these are the problems of life. I'm married, I have 2 kids, I'm a homeowner, and I was working in a really stressful job situation. So these are the, and with that comes issues. It comes, financial issues. You've got to figure out how to pay the mortgage. I'm working for the government, so I'm making enough, but not quite enough to really be comfortable. I have 2 small kids in elementary school at the time. So, and I was having some marital problems as well. So all of those things piled on top of having foot surgery and being in a boot and being laid up on the couch made it real easy to just sit there and start eating these pills like candy. Anyway, so what was supposed to be a month's supply lasted about 10 days. And as I was running out, maybe when I got to the 7th day and I started getting low, I, tried to get a refill, of course, and I could not because it wasn't time yet. Right. And I started thinking about in my head, okay, where can I get more? And then I was like, no, I won't do it. But then I started going into withdrawal. I started feeling bad. I started getting, kind of cold sweats. I started feeling fidgety. I wanted more. So I actually went on the internet and I started Googling where can I buy pills on the street in San Francisco. Wow. And it actually led me to YouTube of all places. There were a couple of videos that referenced Pill Hill, which is Golden Gate and Leavenworth in the Tenderloin, where I could go purchase pills. So one day I just took the car, limping and all in my boot and everything, and I drove down to the Tenderloin, got out of the car, limped up to the corner, and sure enough, there were about 5 or 6 guys selling a variety of different opioid pills on the street. 30 milligram roxycodone, OP80s, which are 80 milligram oxycodones, Opanas, Percocet. They were all there, widely available, broad daylight, out in the open. And so I was able to purchase some 30 milligram Roxys at $30 a pill. And that started me on my run, so to speak, from there. I started, and as addiction, we all know, is a progressive disease. And as my tolerance went up, I started using more and more and more. And I started spending more and more and more money. I started making excuses to my wife why I needed to go out to go somewhere. Hey, I got to go to the store real quick, but I'd be gone for 2 hours because I'd go down to the city to score. Anyway, as my addiction grew over a couple of years, at the peak of my addiction, I was taking, I had switched to 80 milligram oxycodone pills. I was taking 7 of those a day. That's 560 milligrams oxycodone every day. So if you had never used oxycodone before and you took that much, you would probably die. But for me, that was what I needed, not so much to just get high, but to not get dope sick at that point, to not go into withdrawal, just to feel normal. And, I continued to function. I eventually went back to work. I was on these pills at work. So I would go out on my lunch break and I'd go buy these pills real quick because I worked in the city, and come back, get hot, pop one, and then go back to work and everything. And, I was able to function at that level for a little while. But all that time that was happening, my savings account disappeared. I actually started hiding debt from my wife. I was doing cash advances on the credit card. And eventually that spiraled into me stopping paying the mortgage. I was taking my entire paycheck and I was paying the mortgage, and I was using that. Right. And actually, ironically, I actually went about 2 years or maybe 18 months without actually making a mortgage payment. I was able to avoid foreclosure by, telling the bank I wanted to do a modification of my loan, anything and everything. So when you're in your addiction, all your logical decisions must come to the point of how can I get more?
Exactly. I mean, that's what we think about. I mean, I know when I'm drinking, I'm thinking about the next one. When I'm taking cocaine, I'm thinking about when I go to the next one. Let me take you back, Tom, because I want to get into the homelessness later on. But right now, from our studies and our experience and the patients that we've had through here, probably 6,500 or ish over the last 20 years, 80% of those heroin addicts that come through the door started in the doctor's office, just the same as you. So let me ask you a question. Who do you blame for this?
Who do I blame? Well, in recovery, I've let go of all that. But if I had to point the finger at somebody, you definitely have to look at big pharma and the way that they facilitated it with, pharmaceutical salesmen. I remember being in my doctor's office and a pharmaceutical salesman walked in. And, he was this like slick used car salesman guy with his briefcase, and he had all these samples that he was giving out and, all that stuff. So the way that it was promoted was pretty dirty, especially now as it's come out later with all the federal lawsuits that they knew that it was highly addictive. They knew what it was doing, and that they actually, especially like McKesson, there was something in the paper last week in North Carolina about that, about, some emails from 2010 about, good, we want people to switch to heroin, so then they're not our responsibility anymore. That's really, really low down, dirty stuff that they should be held accountable for. Absolutely.
Yeah. And it seems to me that the doctors need to be educated on addiction as well.
Totally 100% agree. And this is where I'm running into some issues here in San Francisco with is that, you know, I really advocate to try to get people with lived experience involved in making decisions around drug policy and how we mitigate the overdose crisis that's happening in San Francisco. And right now, most of those decisions are being controlled by doctors. And while they do, you know, doctors are great, we need doctors, all that stuff. That, you know, I use the term that they've kind of hijacked recovery here in San Francisco, and it's just hard for me because I'm older. But you know, I remember what was happening in the 90s with the opioid crisis and doctors overprescribing, and now basically we're going to trust them again. We're going to trust doctors again. It might be a new generation of doctors, but we're going to trust them again with this, and I don't feel real comfortable about that.
Well, the medical fraternity is baffled with addiction. You know, this just doesn't make sense. So I go to the doctor, and there's addiction in my family, and he puts me on Adderall. Really? How many people have you killed by doing that, doc? You know, give a 10-minute search on your computer that's sat in front of you will tell you that there's addiction in my family. So that needs to be addressed straight away. Secondly, when I came over to this country, I was amazed at how many young kids, children, 12, 13, 14, as little as 9, I've heard, who are prescribed this ADHD that came out suddenly. We're giving Adderall and Vyvanse, and as the years go by, and I've seen these guys die, you know, of cocaine or cheap speed and stuff like that. It's absolutely diabolical. And one of my journeys when I was over here is to bring this out to the open. And I'm telling you something now, it's been a freaking hard, long journey, and it's been a lonely journey. And I'll tell you why, because there's no money in recovery. If the pharmaceutical company cannot give you a pill, you know, sort of, I don't know, Antabuse or stuff like that, or naltrexone, they don't want to know. And if they can get you into treatment or give you a pill, then you're good to go. Other than that, there's no money in recovery. There is no money, right? You know, and that's a shame. It really is.
And this is the thing that's maybe more controversial. So I'm going to just say this is my opinion. But you know, in Canada, they talk a lot about safe supply. You know, heroin-assisted treatment. I know some European countries do that. You know, there's some things you have to consider around that. It's like, first of all, who's supplying the heroin? Big Pharma. Okay. So that's money for them right there. Guaranteed income, like guaranteed revenue generation for that. And also the quality is pharmacy grade. So now you're giving someone a drug that's 75% stronger than what they were getting on the street. So, you know, we really need to I think we just need to focus on treatment and trying to turn people away from illicit substances and put them in a better place.
Well, and how about we talk about the number one addiction as trauma, and what is really the mental health in our country is like out of control. I mean, out of control, and you know that nobody wants to feel anything anymore, right? And so you know that takes us into the homelessness. So you were homeless for how long?
I lived on the street for 6 months, from January 2018 to June of 2018. I literally slept on a piece of cardboard in a doorway in the Tenderloin district in San Francisco, struggling with heroin, crack cocaine, pretty much anything. And that's another big misnomer, is that it's not just one drug of choice. I mean, I used everything. So if someone had extra Klonopin and they wanted to share it, I was going to take it. Someone had extra methadone, I was going to take it. Someone had fentanyl, I was going to take it. Anything to make me feel better, crack, meth, whatever. Because it was out there and I just didn't care at that point.
And that's the way we end up, you know. I was homeless for 14 months. Lost kids and wives and everything. Businesses, medical license, even in England. Just lost all this stuff that I could use, because it's so true. There's no drug of choice when you get to the streets. Because whatever will make me not feel like me is good enough. And back in my day, I don't know about you, Tom, but back in my day, which I'm talking late 70s, early 80s. I was homeless around 1984, I think. And you couldn't go anywhere. There's a state-funded place you could go, and that was it. You know, I mean, there was just no help of any. I was abandoned on the streets, literally abandoned. Nobody would talk to me. Mom and dad wouldn't even answer the phone to me, you know, and there was nowhere else to go. So one of my missions when I got off the street, because I had a huge spiritual awakening, is to spend the rest of my life working with alcoholics and addicts and educating the family. And this is the most important. There's two important things in addiction that people are sweeping under the carpet. One is trauma. Whatever there's addiction or alcoholism, there's always trauma. And the second is you can't treat the alcoholic without treating the same people in the house, because it is a family disease. So the chances when we work with the wife is kind of tripled to what we usually do. And that's the key. Nobody wants to talk about trauma. Oh, it's okay. How many people you spoke to, Tim? You got any trauma? Nah, not in my life. Everybody has it. Everybody. And the more we go back to the scene of the crime and clear that shit up, because alcohol, and I'm going to say this loud for those guys who always hear it, alcohol and drugs have got very little to do with alcoholism and addiction. They really don't. The question that me and Tom probably ask ourselves is, why does Rob hate Rob so much that he has to continue down this path despite what's going on? So that launched me into a 20-year intensive research and evidence-based about the brain. It's the brain, but we can't discount the body, but it's the brain. It's not a drinking problem. It's a thinking problem. Wouldn't you agree, Tom?
I do. And everything you just said is just spot on. It's right on the money. So look, I was filled with a lot of guilt, a lot of shame. I kind of had lost purpose in my life. I was a dad, I was a husband, but I was working a dead-end job for the county, for the government. That was a high-stress job. I was working with domestic violence victims that wanted child support. I mean, my God, who does that, right? Who wants to do that? You're either the bad guy all the time, or you're dealing with someone who's been abused in a relationship. It's a high-stress type of situation. And I just, and I was kind of spiritually bankrupt, I guess you could say, in that I was, I became, self-will became my thing. I could handle it. I could do it. I could take care of the bills. I could take care of the family. And instead of asking my wife for support or reaching out and asking for help, right? And now in recovery, right, I consider us a family because I'm reunited with my wife and kids. We reconciled recently, but it took 2+ years of intense counseling with a marriage family therapist to do that, right? It took me surrendering myself over to recovery, and the steps for me was what the 12 steps are what did it for me, right? And so it took willingness on all of our part, but we all had to deal with this together and work through the trauma together. Because when I started coming back into my family's life, my daughter, who's 14 now, she wouldn't talk to me. She was so hurt. The trauma that I inflicted on her was so bad that she wouldn't speak to me. I mean, you have to think about it. So, here I am, heroin addict, right? I'm driving down to the Tenderloin in a freaking Honda Odyssey minivan with my kids in the back seat, telling them, "Hey guys, okay, I want you to hide for a minute," while the drug dealer hops in the car and I cop my dope. That's the kind of crap that I have to own in my recovery, right? Those are the things that I have to own that I did in my addiction. Now, is addiction a disease? Yes, absolutely, it's a disease. But part of recovery is taking ownership for the things that you did in your addiction. And until you do that, once you do that, then you can find some peace, hopefully.
Yeah. And, the thing is like radical responsibility is not like, you need to do this and you need to show up here and you need to show up here. It's really radical responsibility is really about looking at who you are being in the world and how you are affecting other people. Both of my boys are recovering heroin addicts. And I got into the work in this program from having to, we did 16 rehabs and we were in jail 7 times. I say we because, I was very much involved. And I could not support my kids getting sober until I had radical responsibility for myself and really deeply looked at how my past trauma was given to my children in some form or fashion. And so I reached out to Dr. Rob. We started a relationship as well as it's called Recover Me Coaching. We now train people in transforming yourself before you can transform anyone else, because that to me is the most important thing. Otherwise, you're putting your shit all over people that are trying to recover, and it's not okay. It's really not okay. And people are getting hurt in this industry. They're getting hurt from people that are not doing their own personal work.
Right.
And so we're really passionate about that.
And that's great. Look, so when I went to rehab, I was in there with a bunch of guys that were there. Most of them, I think there were 90 of us, and 87 of them had been mandated to treatment through the court as a way to kind of beat their jail sentence, right? So some of those guys were in there to fake it to make it, to just get out of serving time. But, there were some of us, about 20 of us, that really found recovery. And a lot of those guys would sit there and they would say, what really, why are you here? Why are you trying to get better? And they would say things like, well, I need to get better for my kids. I need to get better for my wife. And I learned in recovery that no, you need to get better for you. Okay. It's about self-healing and exploring the things that are in here. Not, when you start reaching in here into your heart and your soul, and you start repairing the damage in there, this gets better up here. Your mind gets better. And so I learned, and I would talk to guys later on, and I'd go to meetings and whatnot and talk to people and be like, recovery is a selfish thing. You have to do it for you so that you can turn around and be a better human being to your family and to others.
Yeah. And that's what it is for me. It's not about the alcohol. It's about how can
it's just a symptom.
Yeah. It's a symptom. For those people that don't know what we're talking about, which many do because they tune in every week, alcohol, the bottle of alcohol with my alcoholism is a bit like chicken pox with the spots on the outside. They can see the spots, but they think that's the illness. It's not. That's the symptom. That's the signs. What I have is a viral infection that can kill me as an adult. It's the same thing with the alcohol. The alcohol's not the problem. I remember going to a store one morning real early, snowing outside. I'm in a vest and shorts and flip-flops, and I'm sweating profusely. I'm going to go into DT's. I put my £10 on the counter. He puts the bottle on the counter, and this was my reaction. So that was my aha moment. The shaking stopped. The headache went. All of a sudden, I'm asking the shopkeeper, what sort of day are you going to have? It's going to be an amazing day. And I looked at the bottle, not even opened, and that's what really struck me. So when I come off the street, that's why I went into it. And back in the day when I was doing it, nobody wanted to hear it. It was bullshit. It's a choice, you blah, 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 all this great stuff. I was so glad in 1999 when the World Health Organization classed it as a disease. It's a biochemical brain disease. You're born this way. And for those guys who don't know, you can't drink yourself into becoming an alcoholic because you're born this way. Remaps neural pathways that always want to self-sabotage, always, not just now and again. And we hear things different to normal people. Right. And that took a lot of research for me to find out that. But, my mom can talk to me and my brother and say one thing to my brother, and he hears it like supposed to, joking. The same thing she says to me in the same tone, the exact words, and I hear something completely different, which is more aggressive, more, it's my fault. So I've learned 4 things in my life, Tom, up to now. And it's kind of joking, but kind of not. Never going to be thin enough, never going to be blonde enough, never going to be tall enough, and I'm never going to be rich enough. And that's just the way my life is. And if I can come to terms with that, I stand a better chance at looking at me. Because stop looking at the drugs and alcohol. When you're going to treatment, let's just, we'll just stop drinking for 30 days and we'll talk about relapse prevention. What the fuck has relapse prevention got to do with anything? What we hear is who we become. What we see is what we do. Stop teaching this shit in treatment centers and start looking at the real problem.
Right. And it's not easy. Nobody wants to do that kind of work because it's not. I mean, there are rewards to it if you see somebody that makes it in recovery and starts doing better in their life. But it's really hard to sit there and listen to somebody else's, someone else pour their heart out day after day after day after day. So I commend, all the counselors that helped me, the doc, the guy, my counselor in rehab was a recovering alcoholic who just happened to go get a license to be a drug counselor. Okay. He's just a regular guy like me. He wasn't some doctor with a lab coat saying, here, take this pill. He was, and he took the time to kind of let me open up to him. And that made all the difference in the world for me, because that was someone that, one, I could relate to. Two, he spoke the same language. That's the big thing. Is it's almost like speaking a different language. When you're in a recovering addict and you talk to somebody else that's a recovering addict, it's a special language almost that the layman doesn't understand. Yeah. And that's what I'm finding out in my advocacy, is that there's so many people in the world that have misconceived notions about addiction, there's stigma, but really more than anything, there's just a lack of education about addiction and about recovery and what that entails.
For sure. For sure. So take us into what you are doing in your advocacy today.
Well, so I've been in recovery now almost 3 years, which doesn't seem like a long time, but my life has really changed in those last 3 years for the better. My story caught the attention of media, national media, local media, and it kind of Twitter, and it just kind of vaulted me into this world of advocacy kind of locally here in San Francisco to advocate for solutions around homelessness, around addiction, around mental illness, and recovery, and to really make people understand that, look, I don't care what statistics are being shared out there. If you walk out on the street, if you spend any time on the street with the unhoused population in California, And I just did this. I was on Skid Row the day before yesterday, and I was on Venice Beach the day before yesterday, and I was talking to people that work out there, that serve the homeless out there and the homeless themselves. 75%, 70 to 75% of the people out there are struggling with addiction, and all of them are struggling with some type of mental illness. And I just try to bring attention to that in San Francisco so that we can try to, we're going off the cliff with harm reduction here in San Francisco. And I get it. I understand harm reduction. The whole point of it is to keep you alive long enough so you can find the miracle of recovery. But, now we're handing out foil and straws so people can smoke fentanyl. And we've had 713 overdose deaths at the same time. And most of them have died from smoking fentanyl on foil. Now, I support needle exchange because it reduces spread of HIV. I mean, that makes sense, right? But for me, as someone that used to smoke his drugs on foil on the street, I see that as you've kind of blurred the lines between harm reduction and enabling. So I try to hold people to account for that and just point that out. And it's gotten some traction out here. I'm part of the street level drug dealing task force here in San Francisco, where we're looking at ways to reduce street level drug dealing. San Francisco is very unique in that we have an open air organized drug dealing ring operating in plain sight on the street in San Francisco 24/7. If you're ever in San Francisco, I'll be happy to take you to the Tenderloin. You'll see literally 50 drug dealers in a 2 or 3 block radius slinging mostly illicit fentanyl now. That's what they're selling now, but they also sell meth, crack, heroin, that whole bit too. And it's just the level of suffering. There may not be as many homeless people on the street in San Francisco as there are, let's say, on Skid Row, but the level of suffering here is of which I have never seen, and that includes the 6 months that I spent on the street here. So I'm just trying to raise awareness and make some type of change, and try to get the Department of Public Health here and our politicians here to kind of pivot so that they're at least expanding and promoting drug treatment instead of just expanding and promoting harm reduction. Because the problem in San Francisco is that there's no expectation. There's no expectation for anyone to get clean. That's the big problem that we're running into. And that's part of why so many people are dying. And we're starting to change the narrative. They're very close now to funding a 100-bed abstinence-based treatment center in the Black community, run by the Black community, because that's what that community wants. Those are the kinds of changes that I'm participating in and trying to make here in San Francisco.
That's amazing. I love that. I recently was watching a show called 1971, and it's on Apple TV, and it's about the year of 1971 and how things have changed. I don't know if you've seen it, Dr. Rob, but basically literally nothing has fucking changed. Nothing has changed. We have politicians still saying we have a drug problem. This is in 1971. This is terrible. We have an epidemic. We're still in that same conversation. Nothing has changed. It's because our society is sick. Our country is built on codependency in itself. I mean, it's a spiritual disease. And until people understand that, nothing will change. And as Dr. Rob says, the politicians and the, pharma, they're running the show. There's too much money involved. There is no money in recovery. I mean, so in some ways I feel like, I love what I do because it's part of what keeps me sober, if you will, in my own way. But man, it's not an easy world to live in. It's not an easy world to live in.
We've been glamorizing drugs in this country since, I grew up in the 80s. I'm Gen Xer, right? We grew up glamorizing cocaine, glamorizing drug use, and now it's become a drug culture, yep. Right? And so now, everyone just kind of accepts that it is what it is. But one thing that has changed, at least on the West Coast in the last 3 years, is the advent of illicit fentanyl. I promise all of you that it has changed the game permanently. And it should change the game in our approach, because this drug literally can kill you in 3 to 5 minutes, whereas heroin takes you 3 hours before you overdose, right? That's the bottom line. Every scientist, every addiction doctor will tell you that. That's how fast it is, and it's everywhere. It has become the opioid replacement for heroin now. It's not people are mixing it in, none of that stuff. No, it's replaced heroin here in San Francisco, and it's contaminated the street drug supply in San Francisco so that, about 80% of the street drugs now have some kind of fentanyl in it. And it has really changed the game.
Yeah.
It's scary when you think about it. The other thing I'd like to see as well, I don't know whether you agree, Tom, is we did a Friday to Monday in a hospital in Dallas, and we're taking statistics of people coming in with amounts of drugs and alcohol in the system. and it was about 90% of people come through the ER door at any given time. But I saw people who were obviously alcoholics. It was in the charts that were alcoholics, but they died of cirrhosis, liver failure. It didn't go down as alcoholic. It went down as liver failure. It went down as car accident. It went down as left the frying pan on because he was wasted and no alcoholic and he burnt it. The true figures that we need to hear need to be released. And through this is a guess. It's not research. It's a guess from my 20 odd years, nearly 30 years of experience, is alcoholism alone kills more people than a heart attack, cancer, and something else. I can't remember, a brain disease or something like that. It's absolutely horrific. And only then will we realize what kind of epidemic, because I was saying epidemic 14 years ago and people were laughing at me, because you need to be on the streets to see that, Tom. You need to, the ferocious, absolutely way that all builds around drugs and devastation, and humanity being just eaten up and the next generation, being messed before they even know what day it is. I mean, it's just crazy. And people, when I was working, I was the guy. Everyone came to me. Everyone loved me. With all the politicians, I was amazing. When I was on the streets, everybody stepped over me. Everybody stepped over me, and someone would spit down on me. I'm the same guy, but I was tagged with the alcoholism addict, and they didn't. It was embarrassment for them, an absolute embarrassment. And that's what me and Jen try and do: stop the shaming,
right?
Because everybody knows somebody. End of story. End of story. And when it comes to that, I don't know anybody with cancer right now. I know probably 5,000 people with the addiction problem. So it's obviously bigger than that, but we're not talking about, because it's still in the closet. It's not coming out. Shameful. Oh my God, you're an alcoholic. It's crazy.
They don't call it Alcoholics Anonymous for no reason, right? So look, I was at a crossroads in my life too. I could have just kind of tried to go back to a quiet life and rebuild and all that, but I felt compelled in my recovery to speak out. I think that more of us need to speak out, because I think our experience does matter. You can put all the data-driven, evidence-based solutions out there that you want to put out there, but lived experience in this specific issue of addiction and the specific issue of homelessness really, really, really matters. And it should count more in how we form drug policy and how we form our policy around treating the homeless and the mentally ill. Absolutely.
Yeah, and don't get some guy that doesn't know anything about addiction in politics and start making rules. I mean, I just think it's insane. It's insane. It is,
but it's about getting that politician to listen to the right people too. That's part of my advocacy work too. And we're starting. I mean, I've hooked on with some people here in California, and we're starting to hopefully change that narrative to have them at least consider a more balanced approach to this. I mean, if you look at what they're doing in Europe, and Dr. Rob, I know right? In Amsterdam, in Zurich, they broke up those open drug scenes, right? Yep. They broke them up. Yep. And yes, they implemented a bunch of harm reduction, but they also put drug dealers in jail, right? Mm-hmm. None of that happens in San Francisco. Trust me, it just doesn't happen. And so they're just coming at it with carrot, carrot, carrot. And they're literally dismantling the criminal justice system here in the name of restorative justice. And I don't want to get into politics, but I'm just saying the average amount of time a repeat offending drug dealer spends in jail in San Francisco is 3 days. Okay. And it's not the guy that's addicted to drugs that's selling some of his script to support his habit. These are organized cartel-backed drug dealers that do not use their own supply, that are out there selling. It's a business.
Exactly. It's a multi-billion-dollar business.
Yeah, we just need to be honest about that.
Above that, Tom, is the oil industry.
Right.
It's oil industry, then drug selling. And the other thing I want to mention as well, before we run out of time, is stop going to the doctors and believing what he tells you. Just because he tells you that you have, bipolar and gives you a bunch of pills, you have ADHD and gives you a bunch of speed. Stop, go for another opinion. This is how it all started. Oh, it's okay. My doctor gave me. It's okay. Yeah, that is Adderall. Do you know Adderall? Oh, it's for the attention. Really? Do you know what my treatment was when I couldn't concentrate when I was a kid? A slap across the back of the head. Where's this unknown disease come from? That's what I want to know. And if it is a disease, all well and good. I've not gone into that at all. But I can tell you this: 10% of the people using Adderall probably have it. The 90% are on it for a free ride.
Right.
I know that. What sort of messed up adults are they going to be?
How many of these kids that were on Adderall are now struggling with methamphetamine? How many?
Well, my son was one of them, and then he became a heroin addict. But I also want you to know that there in LA, what's big is doctors prescribe Adderall after you have a baby so that you lose weight.
Wow.
That's crazy, isn't it? That's
crazy.
crazy.
It's crazy.
We've almost become flippant with the idea that everybody needs a drug to survive in America, because that's the way it's portrayed. Have you seen them commercials on TV when the guy's walking with the girl or on the boat and the hair's flowing and they're having drinks, and in the background going, this causes heart attack, this causes death, this causes... It's like, how are you getting away with that? How the hell are you getting away with that? It's just crazy. Please don't, say, I don't know, say there's, I don't want to mention any drug. Say there's a drug called ham. Please don't take it if you're allergic to ham. How do I know I'm allergic to it unless I take it? It's like they're covering the back, throwing out these drugs. There was, I always say this, I had no power, but I was on a show, a national show, talking about Purdue with an attorney, and I give him a hard time. Of course I did. What's happened to morphine? That was good enough for my mom when she was in so much pain. So we had a debate, a real strong debate. And the next day they filed for bankruptcy. Now, I know there's a lot of other things that went along with that, but I think the more people that stand up and say, hey, doctors, stop getting a backhand for these drugs and start looking at your patients and stop doing the average. I did this when I first came here, Tom. I went to see about 10 psychiatrists. And I went in saying I can't concentrate. 9 out of the 10 wouldn't even look at me. They were signing a prescription for Adderall. When they gave it to me, they might glance up a little bit. 3 minutes is what I was in there. I come out with 90 Adderall. 3 minutes. What sort of shit is that? How many people are we killing with this stuff? But it's the same old thing. Well, my doctor gave it to me, so he should be okay. Tell that to 90% of heroin addicts that walk through this office. It's unbelievable. We all need to own this shit, and we all need to be aware, and we all need to be responsible with this. It's like, stop following what other people say, because you're going to die. If you're an addict and alcoholic and people are giving you these drugs, you're going to die unless you seek treatment. And I can tell you from now, there's probably 5 or 6% who seek treatment and survive. The rest of the people are dying, in poverty on the streets, and very, very quietly, because it's still shameful.
Right. And we won't do anything to help them get off the street, because the answer, according to the federal government and the state of California, is they need housing. But it takes years. It's going to take, did you know in LA, at the rate they're building housing right now, affordable housing, it'll take 100 years to house the 70,000 homeless in LA? 100 years.
100 years. But I got to tell you, they are now 3D printing homes. There is a company in Texas right now that are 3D printing homes because they want to eradicate homelessness. So don't tell me that our government can't do that.
No, but there's so many, the devil's in the details. That's what someone told me. It's the union, the zoning, all of this stuff, right? The building, the contractors. So by the time, they have hundreds of millions of dollars, they build 700 units when they're supposed to build 10,000. Because that money just gets filtered down. So we have to really look at a whole change to that entire system if we're really going to have housing be the only answer. While I agree that housing is a must, right? You need to also ramp up and fund treatment, mental health treatment, and create some type of system or compulsion to move people that have already fallen and hit that bottom on the street out of that and into a safe place where they can start getting help.
I'd like to see everybody tax $10. From the income to put towards housing and benefits, all not benefits as in payment, to get these guys off the streets, get them back working and get them into decent housing. I wouldn't miss $10, and I guess you guys wouldn't. Can you imagine what we could do with it? Not with the government, by the way, because I mean this with the greatest heart. Now, I'm an American citizen, but some other people are taking that money and it's not going towards what it should go. That's all I'm saying about that. All run by an independent company who has feet on the ground, gets boots on the ground that know what's really going on, because the governments never go on the streets and go, hey, can I sit down with you for an hour and talk about this? No, they think throwing money at you sometimes, but it's like you say, most of it doesn't go to that. It goes to other people. It's like the CEOs of these nonprofits. Outrageous. I can mention one now that's outrageous when I found out how much he is on. And I also found out that 10% of what people give go to the actual cause, 90% gets tied up in all red tape, in all the staff working, especially the CEO. It's crazy.
Right. I agree. And, in California, we just threw $12 billion more at the problem. And I don't really think that after what I saw a couple days ago on Skid Row, that's not enough. And they're not spending it the right way anyway. So
Tom, talk to me about tell me what you do. How can people help you? What do you want our audience to know right now?
Okay. So, right now I'm an independent consultant. I'm a recovery advocate. So I'm kind of self-employed. I'm on my own. I have my website, www.tomwolf.org. I do speaking engagements. I'll come speak to your community. I'll sit on a panel. Anybody that wants to listen, I'll be happy to talk to you. My job right now is raising awareness and being honest about drug policy here in California, about the homeless issues in California, how addiction and mental illness ties into homelessness. And I really think that this is the greatest crisis of our time. Now that COVID is starting to subside a little bit, this is what has been left in its wake. It was already there. It has been amplified now. And if we don't do the right things to make change, it will be our undoing if we don't. Okay, definitely. Because you can't have. It already is, Tom. Yeah, it's already coming apart, right? So we need to really make some hard decisions, make some honest changes, and really come to the middle on this issue around homelessness and addiction and mental illness, and really put a big time focus on treatment. And that's what I do now. I'm having a lot of success doing that right now. I've talked to some large groups. I'm talking to some more groups coming up about it, and it's just it's turning into something bigger. And I'm going to keep speaking as long as people are going to keep listening. Keep speaking. That's what we do. I got slaughtered when I first started this crusade many years ago. I got slaughtered verbally. I got death threats, all that stuff. But, I ain't going anywhere. I've been doing this for a long time. And people's lives are changing. We could do it a sit down with the world. And put this right. Let's leave the government out of this. Put it right. Turn the TVs off. There's 90% of your problems. And find out what's really going on with your next door neighbor. Find out what's really going out there. Because we don't. We're stuck in our phones. Facebook has got us all in jail. We're looking at 24 hours a day. We're not raising our kids properly. Alcoholism are getting worse because of COVID and on and on. Alcohol sales alone went up by 49% during that period. So I know we've almost run out of time. So I'm gonna ask you one question, and then Jennifer's gonna take us out. Describe addiction in one word. Despair. I like that. Thomas, thank you so much for coming on today. I know that the viewing figures are probably highest we've had in about 6 months. So it's awesome. So thank you. And first of all, I want to thank you for the work you do, because nobody ever tells us. I'm sorry, but they don't. Dr. Rob already knows. Jennifer, she's awesome, but she knows. I don't have to. No, we don't. So Thomas Wolf, let me tell you, thank you for what you do. Thank you for the hundreds of thousands of lives you've saved with the ripple effect. And if there's anything else we can do to help your cause, please don't hesitate. But for now, thank you, Tom. Thank you. It's been an honor. Yeah, thank you so much, Tom. And I hesitate to say this, because people are probably going to be like, "What?" But thank you for your disease, because you're making changes in the world. And without these things that God throws at us, I'm a God person, so excuse me, but without it, we cannot make change in the world. And so I'm grateful for my experiences, and I'm grateful for your experiences. Loved the conversation. We would love to have more. If there's anything that we can co-create together, please reach out to Dr. Rob and I. And thank you so much. Thank you. And just remember, recovery gives you a new and better life, not the old life you had before, but a new and better life. It's worth it. It's worth it. It's well worth it. Guys, we'll be right back after this. Take 12 Radio, take12radio.com if you want to visit our friend Monty over there. Such a great guy, the longest
addiction radio show in the world, not podcast, radio. So he's a good guy. That was pretty cool. I think, Jen, that was really cool.
It was fun. I love those conversations. I love getting all up in my righteousness around recovery.
I know, but it's so interesting though. You know, when 1 minute we're sat here, next one we get caught in these little traps, and we run down them and make sure that we have that conversation that not a lot of people have, and that's what I like about this show is we're raw, we're to the point, and some of our guests, they may not be A-listers, but I tell you what, they're A-listers in my heart because of what they're doing and the change that they're making. Yeah,
that's right. I mean, I'd rather sit with people that have done nothing in the world and know their life than to these A-listers that act like they know everything and they're not making any changes.
Exactly.
So good and fun. And it actually got my Friday, my weekend started going. How about you?
Yeah, same here. Here. Oh, go on.
Oh, I just want to tell you, we have a jacuzzi now, and it is so much fun to be hanging out in there. So I'm feeling like you and Janet now.
Yeah, it is. Well,
cool as you and Janet.
Right? I saw a picture of your hot tub, and I don't know if Janet told you it was the exact one that we used to have in Dallas.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. We spent so many nights in there, especially when it was cold. Yeah, it's fantastic. Guys, I want to tell you, Ultimate Recovery Coaching and Transformational Program that you see on the screen, we're going to come back in July. Watch out for everything. But listen, contact us. This coaching course will blow your mind. And I'll tell you why it will blow your mind. Not just because me and Jen are on it, but there's some great people on there also. But it's a program where, yes, you can go out and become a coach. Yes, you get certified, certificate to become a coach. Yes, you can make this a career. But before you do all that, we do something special that other people don't do. We take you back and we'll make sure that you've done your work before you go out and try and teach other people to do their work. And that's the most fascinating. You're learning all the stuff about families, all the stuff about trauma from the past. Then if you want to come in along with us, we're going to the future. What about brain spotting? It's a direct path from eyes to subconscious brain to find out all that stuff, neuroplasticity, somatic experience, all that great stuff. It's all there. It's a 10-week course. It's not a week course of 2 days. It's a 10-week course with 100 hours in there. So you're really learning some stuff, but you will feel better. I know I did, Jen. You'll feel better when you go through this because you would have done your own work. There's lots of stuff to do.
Yeah. And that our goal is heal yourself, heal your relationship with spirit, whatever that spirit relationship is, and then heal the world around you. That's it. That is what this course is really about. So sign up, call Janet, call me, call Dr. Rob, whatever it is. We want you. We're excited. We even have some bigger programs happening. Rehab centers are reaching out to us. And so we're super, super excited about supporting that world as well.
So if you're in a treatment center or work as a tech or whatever else in a treatment center, this could be for you. Get in contact. Jen's a specialist on it. Doesn't mean you have to contact her and bug her 24/7, but she come up with this idea that we teach people at treatment centers to become better people and better coaches. Even though you're a tech, you can also become that coach. And the interesting thing is you can actually save lives with this stuff. And the information that it's absolutely phenomenal. Phenomenal.
It is. All right.
So guys, listen, thank you so much for joining us. I see the figures are nice today. I like them like that. I want to say, first of all, thanks for being it. And tell your friends about us or like us or follow us or text us, whatever you need to do to pass this around. And then listen, if you want to be a guest, call Janet or Courtney. And by the way, we want to thank Courtney. She's kind of our outreach director. She's over there in Dallas, Texas. So you know who she is. If you get on our pages, just go to her and she will book you on the show or she'll give you further information. But thank you to Courtney for sorting out all the guests and all the fun things that we do.
Amazing. She's an amazing girl. She's fun.
She is. Okay, guys, thank you so much. Have an enormous weekend. Compliment 3 people, please, when you go out each day. And remember, empowered people empower people.
And healed people heal people.
I love it. Bye, guys.
Bye.